Have you ever found yourself in a conversation, yearning for connection, yet feeling a familiar tightness in your chest as words dry up and your mind goes blank? It's a common human experience, a silent struggle often mistaken for a lack of intelligence or social grace. But what if the truth was far more profound? Carl Jung, the revolutionary psychologist, unveiled a breathtaking insight. Those who effortlessly navigate conversations aren't inherently gifted speakers, nor are they simply extroverts. Their secret lies not in what they say, but in what they don't suppress. Jung discovered that your silence isn't an absence of thought. It's a bustling internal landscape under siege by a powerful, unconscious psychological filter. Hundreds of authentic thoughts, observations, and feelings race through your mind, yet a hidden gatekeeper rejects them before they can reach your lips. This isn't a deficit, it's a sign of unexpressed psychological depth, a vast inner world waiting to be unleashed. The unsettling reality is that many believe effortless conversation is a natural gift for some, a perpetual struggle for others. But Jung peeled back this illusion, revealing a darker truth. Every time you think, "That's too random," or "They won't care about that," you're not just dismissing a thought. You're actively strengthening psychological defense mechanisms designed to shield you from perceived rejection. It's like building higher walls around a magnificent garden, fearing that its beauty might be misunderstood or criticized. Jung famously wrote, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." Yet, he understood that most people never allow this profound transformation. They are too busy performing social safety, meticulously crafting a persona, a social mask, instead of risking authentic contact. They engage in what he termed persona conversations, interactions where the focus is so intently on maintaining a polished facade that they disconnect from the vast, vibrant reservoir of genuine thoughts their psyche naturally generates. Imagine a magnificent river teeming with life and flow, but its waters are held back by countless dams of self-doubt and fear. Jung's breakthrough insight was that exceptional conversationalists weren't performing better, they were filtering less. They had better access to what we can call the unconscious conversation stream, a continuous cascade of psychological associations, spontaneous thoughts, memories, and insights that arise naturally in response to social interaction. Jung urged us, your vision becomes clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. He understood that within each of us lies an inexhaustible wellspring of conversational material. Consider Sarah, a brilliant 32-year-old software engineer who believed she was boring because her mind would go blank at work events. In therapy, her wit and insight shone, yet socially, she froze. Jung would immediately recognize this. Sarah wasn't lacking material, she was unconsciously filtering out a staggering 90% of her authentic thoughts. Her psyche was generating dozens of fascinating responses, questions about colleagues' experiences, insightful observations, connections to her own passions. But her unconscious safety system, honed by years of conditioning, rejected them all as potentially too much or inappropriate. This is why conversations flow effortlessly with close friends. Your psychological defenses relax, allowing this natural stream to emerge. You aren't suddenly more interesting, you're simply filtering less of your authentic self. The river is allowed to flow more freely. Beyond general filtering, Jung identified a second powerful pattern: shadow censorship. This is the unconscious rejection of thoughts that don't align with your idealized social persona. Jung powerfully stated, One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. In conversation, this darkness encompasses all the genuine thoughts you've learned to suppress, because they might reveal aspects of yourself you've deemed socially unacceptable. Picture a lighthouse, beaming only its most acceptable light, while its true complex spectrum remains hidden. Notice how you respond internally when someone touches on a topic you feel strongly about, like workplace stress. Your shadow might whisper, "I actually hate my job too." Management is completely out of touch, or "I've secretly thought about quitting," but your persona immediately intervenes, labeling these as too negative, too unprofessional, too risky. David, a 28-year-old marketing professional, felt he had nothing interesting to contribute at client dinners. Yet his internal world was incredibly vibrant. He observed micro-expressions, critically questioned strategies, and had strong opinions on industry trends. His childhood conditioning, where expressing contrary views led to criticism, had trained him to suppress anything that might create conflict. Jung's analysis illuminates 3 layers of shadow censorship: surface censorship, rejecting contextually inappropriate thoughts; identity censorship, suppressing thoughts that contradict your professional or social self-image; and existential censorship, avoiding thoughts revealing deeper fears, desires, or philosophical stances. The truth is, people who never run out of things to say haven't developed better social skills. They've cultivated better access to their own authentic psychological material by integrating rather than rejecting their shadow aspects. They've learned to navigate the depths of their inner river, not just skim its surface. Why do these filtering systems develop in the first place? Jung's analytical psychology reveals the systematic roots of conversational anxiety, a depth that most social skills training completely misses. Our persona development, the creation of our social mask, begins in early childhood as a survival mechanism. Children learn to suppress authentic expression when it leads to criticism, withdrawal of affection, or social rejection. This creates a psychological splitting, where parts of your authentic self recede into the unconscious to protect social acceptance. It's like a young artist hiding their most experimental work, fearing it won't be understood. This intricate filtering system operates through 3 interconnected psychological processes. 1. Projection anxiety. You unconsciously assume others will judge your authentic thoughts in the same critical way your early caregivers might have, creating anticipatory rejection even before you speak. 2. Shadow displacement. Instead of expressing genuine thoughts, you search for safe comments that maintain social approval, but which ultimately disconnect you from your true psychological material. 3. Persona rigidity. Over time, your social mask becomes so ingrained that you lose conscious access to the authentic thoughts and feelings that would generate natural, vibrant conversation. This is why superficial social skills advice often fails. Teaching conversation starters or active listening techniques doesn't address the fundamental psychological split between your authentic self and your social persona. You're trying to perform connection while unconsciously protecting against genuine contact. Jung's approach was revolutionary because he understood that social anxiety isn't a skills deficit, it's a powerful sign of psychological authenticity trying to emerge against learned patterns of self-suppression. It's your true self knocking, asking to be seen. Jung developed what we can call the authentic expression assessment, a profound tool for understanding your specific psychological barriers to natural conversation and transforming them into strengths. This assessment reveals exactly which aspects of your authentic self you've been unconsciously suppressing and provides a systematic method for reintegrating them into conscious expression. Jung believed this was essential for individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, rather than who you think you should be. It's about taking ownership of your entire being, not just the socially acceptable parts. Here's a methodology inspired by Jung. Begin by paying acute attention to the gap between your internal experience and external expression during conversations. When someone shares something, pause. Notice the spontaneous thoughts, feelings, or associations that arise in your mind. Before your conscious filter engages, let's illustrate with a common scenario. Someone says, "I'm thinking about changing careers because I'm not fulfilled at work." The persona response, heavily filtered. "That's interesting. Have you thought about what you'd want to do instead?" Safe, polite, but lacks genuine engagement. The shadow response, authentic, but unprocessed. "Yeah, work sucks. I hate my job too. Most people are just stuck in meaningless careers." Authentic, but potentially overwhelming or isolating. The integrated response, authentic and conscious. That feeling of unfulfillment is so real. I've noticed it in myself too. There's something about spending most of our waking hours doing work that doesn't connect to our deeper values. What is it about your current role that feels most disconnected from who you are? Genuine, vulnerable, creates connection and depth. Jung identified 3 types of conversational integration. 1. The unconscious suppressor relies on heavily filtered, safe responses that maintain social approval but create distance and superficiality. They are the river held captive by dams. 2. The reactive expressor offers unfiltered, authentic responses that can sometimes overwhelm others because they haven't been consciously processed or integrated with empathy. They are the river overflowing its banks. 3. The conscious integrator delivers authentic responses that have been filtered through self-awareness and empathy rather than social fear, creating genuine connection without overwhelming others. They are the river flowing powerfully yet within its banks, nourishing everything around it. Recognizing your typical operating type is the first step toward developing the psychological self-awareness Jung considered essential for authentic human connection. Before you apply these insights, an important ethical warning. Knowledge of psychological patterns grants you influence. Jung wrote, "Where love rules, there is no will to power, and where power predominates, love is lacking." The goal isn't to become more socially powerful, but to become more authentically connected. This means using your understanding to foster genuine relationships, not to manipulate or impress. True power lies in vulnerability and connection. Here's how Jung's approach transforms social interaction in specific contexts, in professional settings. Instead of performing competence, share authentic expertise and genuine curiosity. When a colleague mentions a challenge, offer insights from actual experience, not just generic advice. Your real voice is your most valuable asset. In relationships, replace polite pleasantries with genuine interest in the other person's psychological reality. Ask questions that arise from authentic curiosity about their inner experience, rather than just maintaining conversational momentum. Seek to truly see them. In parenting, model authentic expression by sharing age-appropriate, genuine thoughts and feelings rather than maintaining a perfect parental facade. This teaches children the invaluable lesson of true authenticity. For the next week, practice conscious authenticity in low-stakes conversations. Before responding, pause and ask yourself, what is my authentic response to what they've shared? Then, find a way to express some version of that authentic response, rather than defaulting to your habitual social filter. This work is primarily about your relationship with yourself, not about changing others. When you become more authentic, you unknowingly give others permission to be more authentic too. This is the two-way mirror effect Jung discovered. As you become more comfortable with your own authentic psychological material, you become more capable of receiving others' authenticity without judgment or discomfort. You become a haven for truth. Jung understood that any knowledge of psychological patterns carries a shadow potential, the risk of using insights for manipulation rather than connection. We must address the specific dangers of applying conversational psychology unconsciously. What Jung called the manipulator's shadow emerges when people use psychological insights to gain social advantage instead of creating authentic connection. This shadow manifests in specific patterns. The pseudo-authentic performer uses calculated vulnerability and strategic personal sharing to create false intimacy while maintaining emotional distance, i.e., the psychological button pusher deliberately triggers others' psychological patterns to gain compliance or admiration without regard for their well-being. The conversation collector treats social interactions as opportunities to practice techniques rather than genuine chances for human connection, like a scientist observing specimens. Here are the warning signs Jung would watch for. Feeling satisfied when you successfully read someone rather than when you genuinely connect. Planning your vulnerabilities strategically instead of sharing authentically in the moment. Judging others based on their psychological patterns rather than meeting them with compassion. Using insights about conversation to avoid your own authentic self-disclosure. The antidote Jung prescribed was radical self-application. Every technique you learn about conversation must first be applied to understanding your own psychological patterns. Every insight about others' social behavior must be examined for what it reveals about your own unconscious social strategies. Remember that everyone you meet is carrying their own psychological wounds, defense mechanisms, and attempts at authentic connection. The person who seems socially confident may be performing just as much as the person who seems anxious. Your role isn't to analyze them, but to show up as authentically as possible and let genuine connection arise naturally, like two souls recognizing each other in the vastness. Jung insisted that the highest ethical use of psychological knowledge is creating conditions where others feel safe to be authentic, not becoming more skilled at reading or influencing them. Jung discovered something profound. When you show up authentically in social interaction, you create what we call the authenticity mirror effect. Let me share a personal story. Early in my journey with Jung's work, at a networking event, I felt my usual social anxiety. Instead of trying to impress or ask strategic questions, I decided to practice authentic presence. When asked what I did, instead of my polished description, I said, I study why people feel disconnected from each other and try to understand what creates genuine human connection. Something shifted instantly. The usual surface-level professional exchange transformed. This person began sharing their own struggles with loneliness and their search for meaningful relationships. Others were drawn in. They sensed something real, a space where masks could drop. Authenticity operates at multiple levels simultaneously, creating these mirrors. The personal mirror. When you express authentic thoughts, you give others implicit permission to access their own. The emotional mirror. When you share genuine feelings, you create space for others to acknowledge theirs. The psychological mirror. When you acknowledge your own struggles and growth, you invite others to recognize their human journey. The existential mirror. When you engage with life's deeper questions, you activate others' capacity for meaningful reflection. Jung wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But he also discovered that when you take steps toward accepting yourself completely, you become a catalyst for others' self-acceptance. This is why people are magnetically drawn to authentic individuals, not because they're perfect, but because they create a sacred space for everyone to be more real. This mirror effect explains why some conversations leave you feeling energized and deeply connected, while others drain you completely. Authentic exchange creates energy because both people are accessing their genuine psychological vitality rather than maintaining protective facades. It's a dance of true selves, not merely a social performance. The authentic conversationalist Jung envisioned embodies a transformed way of being. This isn't about becoming a better conversationalist in a superficial sense, but about becoming someone for whom conversation naturally flows because you're no longer fighting against your own psychological nature. The integrated, authentic conversationalist embodies specific characteristics. Spontaneous depth. You naturally move conversations toward meaningful topics because superficial exchange feels psychologically incomplete. Comfortable silence. You can tolerate pauses without anxiety, trusting that authentic responses will arise when they're needed, allowing space for reflection. Emotional honesty. You share feelings and struggles appropriately, understanding that vulnerability creates connection, not weakness. Curious presence. You ask questions from genuine interest rather than social obligation, making others feel truly seen and valued. Paradoxical confidence. You are simultaneously more humble, aware of your own psychological patterns, and more confident, not dependent on others' approval for self-worth. Picture your life when conversation becomes a natural, joyful expression of your authentic self, rather than a performance you have to manage. Professional relationships deepen because colleagues sense your genuine interest. Friendships become richer as you share your actual thoughts and experiences, shedding social masks. Even brief interactions with strangers become opportunities for real human connection, moments of shared humanity. Jung acknowledged this transformation requires immense courage. You will face moments when your authenticity makes others uncomfortable. You will encounter situations where being real creates temporary conflict or even rejection. Some relationships built on mutual performance may not survive your increased authenticity, like old skin being shed. But Jung promised something profound emerges from this process. You develop psychological sovereignty. This is a sense of self that isn't dependent on others' approval or understanding. From this unshakable foundation, conversation becomes an expression of who you are, rather than a strategy for getting what you need. The price of this transformation is releasing your attachment to being universally liked or understood. The reward is discovering what genuine human connection feels like when both people are showing up authentically, a connection that nourishes the soul. Jung's ultimate goal wasn't just better conversation, but conscious relationship, the ability to connect authentically with others while maintaining your psychological integrity. This develops gradually through predictable stages. The integration process unfolds through 5 distinct phases. 1. Recognition. Becoming conscious of your filtering patterns and the gap between your internal experience and external expression. This stage often involves productive discomfort as you realize how much of yourself you've been suppressing. 2. Experimentation. Beginning to express more authentic thoughts in safe relationships and low-stakes situations. You're learning to trust your spontaneous responses while developing discernment about appropriate expression. 3. individuation. Your authentic voice becomes more natural and consistent across different contexts. You no longer feel like you're performing different personalities for different audiences. You are simply you. 4. Refinement. You develop a sophisticated ability to express authentic thoughts in ways that create connection rather than conflict. Your authenticity serves the relationship rather than just self-expression. 5. Transcendent. Conversation becomes a natural flow of genuine human connection. You're no longer thinking about what to say because authentic responses arise spontaneously from your psychological presence, like an effortless dance. Jung emphasized that each stage involves productive discomfort. You are literally rewiring neural pathways formed to protect you from social rejection. Your psyche will initially resist authenticity because it feels dangerous based on past conditioning. The key insight Jung offered is that this discomfort signals psychological growth, not social failure. When you feel nervous about expressing an authentic thought, that's often your psyche recognizing an opportunity for greater integration and aliveness. It's the growing pains of your true self emerging. Jung understood that individual psychological development creates ripple effects that extend far beyond personal benefit. When you become more authentic in conversation, you're contributing to what he called collective consciousness evolution. Here's how this works. Authenticity is psychologically contagious. When someone encounters genuine human presence, it activates their own capacity for authenticity. They leave your interactions slightly more connected to their own psychological reality and more likely to express authentically in their next social encounter. It's like a single candle lighting another, then another, until a room is bathed in light. Jung acknowledged that this process faces significant resistance. Our culture often rewards performance over authenticity, cleverness over depth, agreement over honest dialogue. Many people have become so disconnected from their authentic selves that genuine expression feels foreign or even threatening. But Jung believed that authentic individuals serve as psychological pioneers, demonstrating possibilities for human connection that inspire others to risk greater authenticity. Each conversation where you show up genuinely creates a small field of permission for others to be more real. This connects to Jung's vision of collective transformation through individual development. As more people integrate authentic expression into their social identity, the overall quality of human conversation and connection improves. We move from a culture of performed social interaction toward one of genuine human exchange. You become part of what Jung saw as an evolutionary process, humanity developing greater capacity for authentic relationship as a species. Your willingness to risk genuine expression in conversation contributes to this larger, profound transformation of human social potential. Remember Jung's profound insight that began our journey. People who never run out of things to say haven't developed superior social skills, they've developed superior access to their authentic psychological material. You now understand the unconscious conversation stream that your psyche naturally generates and how psychological filtering systems developed to protect you from perceived rejection, but ultimately disconnect you from your genuine conversational capacity. You are someone who chose to explore the deeper psychological dimensions of human connection rather than settling for surface-level social performance. This positions you among those Jung called the individuating people, those willing to become authentically themselves in relationship with others. Your next step is to implement conscious authenticity in your daily conversations, starting with the commitment to notice the gap between your internal experience and external expression. From there, gradually practice expressing more of your authentic thoughts while always maintaining respect for others' psychological reality. If you want to explore Jung's insights about psychological projection and how we unconsciously assign our internal patterns to others in conversation, dive deeper into understanding how what you see in others often says more about you than them. You have everything you need to transform your conversational experience from performance anxiety into profound, authentic human connection. The question isn't whether you're capable of this transformation, it's whether you're willing to risk being genuinely yourself in relationship with others. If you're ready to begin this journey towards psychological authenticity in all your conversations, then step forward. The world awaits the real you.